Issue 151. Right away, we start out with Sonic having been forced to wear Scourge's clothes, noticing the other evil twin smirking in front of him. Even Antoine looks kind of mischievously happy, while Alicia looks just genuinely happy. And they finally remembered Anti-Bunny exists. What took them so long? The interesting thing to note is that Antoine looks like he has the same scar Patch would, so it seems like they avoided the problem of the evil twins immediately knowing he's Antoine because of a lack of a scar, because Scourge found a way to fake the scar with makeup or something. You'd think if he was really that evil, he would have given the scar for real. If that was supposed to be why Patch has the scar, then assuming that, he should have been fine with doing it to Antoine too. But he wasn't. The narration calls them the badass duplicates, by the way, which doesn't really make sense. If anything, the opposite might make more sense. They don't really have as much proper combat experience because they're not freedom fighters, so they wouldn't be as good at it. Rotor, Miles, and maybe Alicia all immediately kick Sonic with Alicia saying, "Ditch me and the others, will you do your own thing, will you? Well, pardon my boot." While Anti-Bunny and Antoine just stand there, not joining in to attack him from the other side for some reason. What Alicia just said is interesting and reveals a huge plot hole. From the moment we saw Scourge being threatened as a top dog by Patch, we were expected to just buy that somehow the stars aligned so that everything would be back to normal for Scourge here, even though he was left by his friends last time. That's the whole reason he did his own thing in the first place. So what caused them to take him back so they could get mad at him for ditching them for Mobius? I could only assume that Scourge did something really monumental to get them to take him back, like saving Miles from drowning or something. Otherwise, this makes no sense. You'd think they'd hate him so much that they wouldn't care that he ditched them to do his own thing, because they'd have been made free of him. But instead, they're all really eager to get revenge on him for something they should have been thankful for. The only explanation I can think of is that maybe Miles in particular was really upset that his best friend and brother figure from childhood abandoned him to do his own thing, especially since his parents aren't around either. And that got the rest of them against Scourge, all protective of their youngest member. And Miles isn't explaining exactly how bad he felt because he doesn't want to embarrass himself and look weak when he could be giving him what he deserves. Just look at how Scourge treated Tails, brushing him off so he could kiss a girl more after he acted like he thought his kissing her was as evil as murdering Sally. He said he didn't need a kid's sidekick at the moment, and Tails left in a huff. If he treated Miles like that a lot, passing him up for girls, his resenting him would make perfect sense, as Tails would clearly resent Sonic for the same reason, and it'd only get a lot worse if he outright ditched the gang without even taking him along for the ride. Which he could have very easily done. He could have replaced Tails too while he was at it. But maybe that was seen as too big a risk, and maybe Tails could have engineered a device to get home in secret. I also don't know why Anti-Jeffrey isn't here anymore, since he's supposed to have been his replacement. And I can only assume Anti-Bunny was sick in bed every time we should have been able to see her. I can clearly see Antoine's eye under the patch. It's not really fitting right, I guess. And Miles looks like a girl here, with his hairstyle and his earrings. No wonder he changed his appearance later on. After Sonic gets tasered by Boomer, who threatens him, saying he's not allowed to so much as look at his devices in the lab next time, naturally he must know about Scourge stealing the teleport because he ditched them with it. Then Anti-Bunny says the interesting line, "As for you, two-timer, I could understand you seeing Sally behind my back, but Penelope? With that beak?" This reveals two things. First, he started dating her when he came back, just to go back to also kissing the girl he called a neg and a pain later. And he didn't flirt with Sally, by the way, so I thought she was so irritating to him that he wouldn't want to kiss anyone like her. The fact that he did see Sally as well, and that duck girl too, implies a lot about how desperately he craves affection and he's resorting to girls he doesn't even like. And more interestingly, I could understand, she says. So despite being an evil twin, she could understand him cheating on her with Anti-Sally? Maybe because he used to date Alicia, okay, but the sheer fact that she could understand that at all instead of just hating him for it is baffling. It makes sense that she'd find out about his cheating from talking with Alicia and finding out the two were kissing. Wait, I guess we skipped over the part where Anti-Bunny got all irritated with Alicia for participating in kissing her boyfriend behind her back then. Is her friendship with Alicia really that strong that they're still friends after that and she could understand him cheating on her with her? When I first saw these panels before I read the comic up to this point, I assumed for some reason that everyone knowing about Scourge's misdeeds and turning on him was all Miles' fault somehow. Before Sonic could stand out an explanation of who he really is, he gets jump kicked by her while she's saying that she's not putting up with his act anymore. Then, as Antoine looks all smug at this with a sword sheathed, that I'm assuming he gets away with never using on people because that traumatized him and gave the game away. Make me wonder why he hasn't gotten rid of it. Miles says, "Don't be greedy, girls, it's my turn now." He calls his friends girls, which is kind of like Scourge calling girls chicks. So he's still talking like a kid, which is surprising in hindsight. Also, there's what I can only hope is a non-canon art mistake here. What happened to his gloves? He was clearly wearing gloves, and he'll clearly be wearing gloves later on. Sadly, we cut past Miles potentially telling him his motivation for hating Scourge, and we see Scourge being all smooth with Rouge. He talks like Sonic would have, saying that Angel Island's like a second home, and saying, "Knuckles wouldn't know what to do without me." And Rouge asks him to show her around the place. Scourge then potentially gives the game away by saying that he'd even show her the Chaos Emerald. First of all, he proves that he doesn't know it's called the Master Emerald now. Second, he shouldn't think that there's only one emerald in there because the anti-Angel Island has a bunch of emeralds in it, and there's no reason he should think things are different here. And he doesn't even comment on the vast difference once he gets to that place. And third, he's saying something that Rouge should know Sonic wouldn't say. Well, to be fair, he's not literally saying, "I'll let you take the Master Emerald." He's just saying he'll show her as a tour, so it's at least somewhat believable. Plus, Rouge doesn't really know Sonic very well. While Sonic is tied up upside down, thinking that he's going to give Scourge the major smackdown when he gets out of this, as opposed to the other evil twins like Miles, Antoine, who has a wrist thing like Boomer does, that I'm not sure what it does, says that the payback's a bitch. Or rather, the lame censored version. Wait, wouldn't that give the game away? His evil twin wouldn't have any problem with cursing. And as that Scourge has had this coming for a long time, explaining why he enjoys participating in this so much. He can easily enjoy victimizing people who deserve it. And again, Alicia looks genuinely happy at seeing this, not smirking at all. Antoine says happily that he hopes he enjoys his swim, and he's the one to say, "On my mark, ready, set, fire," putting more responsibility on him for potentially murdering someone when he didn't have to. It would make sense that being with the evil twins would make Antoine more open to killing people he believes deserves it, as long as his friends approve. And again, he has more reason to hate Scourge than any of them. On fire, all of them fire lasers at the rope above Sonic with their wrist devices, because they have those apparently. And I can only assume Miles' laser firing wrist thing is either strapped to the other side of his spiked bracelet, or he actually can shoot lasers out of the spiked bracelet itself. We're cheated out of actually seeing the answer. Or he can fire it from his glove. And Sonic falls into the water all tied up. After Rouge flies Scourge to Angel Island, and Scourge confusingly talks as if he knows where the Master Emerald is for some reason, they see Locke getting out of a cave and says, "Looks like an older version of Nux." Very interesting. It's obvious he's never seen the father of Anti-Knuckles before. Rouge tells him to wait here for a signal, and he'll know what to do when she does. Meanwhile, the evil twins are staring down over the cliff in front of a dead tree, with Antoine's smile looking a little more forced and reluctant, while Miles' expression is hard to fully discern. And Anti-Bunny says that maybe the octopods got him, while Boomer says that the high level of thermonium would have done him in too. But somehow neither of that happened because fuck logic. We aren't ever going to find out exactly how we survived that situation because having the panels dedicated to that would have been too hard. The ropes were tied around him so tightly they shouldn't have logically been able to spin dash at all, and it clearly fell into water that apparently had polluting chemicals in it, but is just fine. He also doesn't have the shades or jacket on anymore, so maybe he took off the jacket and the ropes around him went with it? But how do you take off a jacket with your arms and legs tied to your body? This is just insulting. Miles then says the incredibly mature and sophisticated line, "No way!" something that Tails would never say. For some reason, Antoine almost recognizes Sonic from the sound of his voice, which is stupid because Sonic and Scourge have to have the same vocal cords down to a T because they're the same person but from another universe. Maybe it's just really wishful thinking on his part. Antoine reminds himself of how much he hates Scourge for what he did to him, and takes out his sword thinking, if at first you don't succeed, it's time to slice and dice. Again, he'd gladly murder someone who deserves it as long as his friends approve. And that's not an insult at all. Sonic dodges the sword swipe by simply backing up, which Miles smirks at rather than being disappointed at all. But Antoine thinks, no matter how much I wish to skewer the pig, I mustn't forget he's my only means to return home. Why does he think of the little French instead of just all of it? If the point is that he's thinking in his native language and is translated into English for our benefit, why the sudden French there? Koshan means slob or pig, by the way. One of those I had to look up. Antoine wonders how Patch did it because he's amazed he hasn't gotten killed while stomping around in his boots. Why? What's wrong with the boots? It's not like they're high heels. Sonic trips over a rock going backwards only to do a graceful landing and spin dash at him, which I can only assume is a careful spin dash, not letting his sharp spines cut into him. We unfortunately don't get to see him land unconscious. He calls Alicia and Bunts chicks like Scourge would, and proceeds to throw them into the water. The very same water that has both octopods and thermonium in it. The latter of which I guess is invisible because the water looks fine to me. You can understand why Miles hit him with his tails there, because for all he knew, Scourge intentionally tried to murder his friends. Sonic didn't know how deadly the water was. Oh wait, he did, never mind. He clearly responded to hearing about it. He doesn't know whether they can swim or not. What if they drowned and he murdered them? He really doesn't think ahead. Miles doesn't have a chance to say anything about him potentially killing his friends because he gets made to spin around by Sonic running around him in a circle. He looks so cute with his eyes all cross-eyed. And I love how Sonic says, "Nice move, little buddy." It doesn't hurt him one bit, settling for just making him so dizzy that he'd sit down all dizzy. So just like with when he saw all those other tales calling them so many little buddies, he proved that he considers Miles to be a little buddy too. That's so sweet. Wait, Sonic's running around with just socks on? Didn't his shoes get explained to be specially made so that he wouldn't cause fire from the friction of running around? Why the hell didn't he create fire when he ran around Miles? Or at least burn the soles of his socks? Either way, after Boomer somehow misses with his laser, despite all the experience he must have with it, Sonic says that he can't outrace the Sonic spin and spin dashes at him too, which somehow doesn't cut him from the tops of his sharp spines clearly being below him. Once again, he almost murders one of the evil twins without even noticing. He crushes the wrist laser under its foot because I guess he brought it down at super speed, and after giving a flimsy justification for how he survived involving strong currents heading downstream, clean living, and the speed, he says in his amusing way that he's not his friend and just wants to go home. Somehow this causes Boomer to figure out he's Sonic, even though if Scourge was in this situation, he probably wouldn't consider him his friend anyways and would say he's going home if he went to Mobius. And then we just cut past Boomer solving his dilemma. Another bit of laziness, as I guess we're just supposed to assume Boomer already had another teleporter just made up in his lab, and Antoine didn't get it because he didn't know about it and only Boomer was allowed in there. I would have liked to see at least one panel of Boomer getting Sonic home, but we don't. I've read the story years before. Scourge wonders why Locke isn't putting the moves on Rouge, thinking that if Rouge doesn't light his fire, he's a lost cause. Rouge has a sob story about how she's been alone most of her life with no one to turn to. Isn't that true though? He must not really upset her because she's fine with talking about it without getting genuinely worked up. Locke says that he can relate somehow and isn't sure what she wants. Rouge says that she wants someone to love her, and Scourge says that this is his cue. He then simply walks down the stairs to the Master Emerald instead of having ran down them at super speed before Rouge would do anything, because, well, I can't imagine how you could walk downstairs at speed of sound. But maybe you could, and Sonic's been shown to be able to do anything at Sonic speed, so why didn't he do this? Was he afraid of tripping? Either way, Sonic teleports to Scourge because I assume he saw him through the teleporter portal while shifting around which location of Mobius he'd warped to. Scourge calls his friends a gang of screw-ups, and Sonic says that Boomer's spare zone link generator helped him. It sure is convenient that he had a spare. Scourge then says confusingly that Boomer was always pretty useless in a fight. I don't get that because Boomer looks all big and muscular. You'd think he'd be the second best in a fight next to Scourge himself. Instead, we're expected to believe he's totally incompetent. Sonic tells Scourge to leave since the place just got fixed after Eggman trashed it, and Scourge says, "You think I would wimp out like those chumps in my homeworld?" Why does he think they'd wimp out? Did they think his gang would refuse to kill Sonic out of a good conscience? That wimp out? We just saw them try to kill someone, even Miles, because a kid in a gang can be peer pressured into anything, as basically the psychology of that says. What about that is wimping out? Does he call them these names because they don't like him? Then I'm promptly confused at Sonic saying with a smile that he thought Scourge would wimp out. When he calls Scourge a poser with a U in it, he compares him to Antoine. First off, poser in French means artisan or pretentious show-off. You want poser translated, you say imposter. And second, poser sounds just like poser in English. So why would Scourge just assume that he was speaking French? And third, I guess Moby in French is different, so that poser with a U actually is a synonym for imposter. After Scourge calls Sonic a wuss for some reason, either to just insult him or he's delusional, Sonic takes his shoes back and Scourge throws a rock at him, saying that he'll do whatever it takes so that he's numero uno and Sonic's not. When Locke remembers to watch the chamber, realizing something's wrong somehow, he makes sure that the 18-year-old girl young enough to be his daughter stops kissing him at last. I guess he was really desperate, and jumps into the hole in the ground instead of going into a cave. Apparently, the hole was a secondary entrance. He had sensed danger to the Master Emerald, I assume because it psychically sent him a signal about it way after Scourge actually entered the room with it. Locke figures out that Scourge is the evil twin because Sonic would never use a boulder on someone as a weapon to try and kill him. If he wanted to kill him, why didn't he just run at the speed of sound and snap his neck? A long time ago. Why did he hold back in the first place? He calls him a dope without a clue and a simp for some reason. My spell checker doesn't know what simp means. And Locke uses his magical power to send Scourge flying up out of the hole. He then shows concern for Sonic's nasty bruises, which Sonic characteristically brushes off with bravado as he gets helped up. Meanwhile, Rouge calls Scourge totally pathetic, saying that this is what she gets for sending a male to do a female's job, and wonders if she should check out the pickings down under. Scourge tells her to hold up a minute. Rouge says that she shouldn't because they're not best friends or anything, and Scourge says that while he didn't get the emerald, he did pick up a few little jewels. Is that a shard of Master Emerald? I didn't see him pick that off. He tells her that the both of you have potential, meaning both her and the Emerald Shard, I guess, and Rouge flies away with him saying they'll discuss this someplace more private. Sonic's back in that hole an hour later, thanking Mr. L, Knuckles' father, for getting him an airship ride home. And he thinks about how he never found out what Scourge wanted over here, calling him dorky when he's the opposite. Sonic thinks, what did he think he would get out of being me? Amy kisses him on the cheek, being worried about his bruises. He walks her home because he's too polite to just run away like the more stereotypical Sonic, making me wonder why people think Archie Sonic is a heartless jerk since he was too nice to run away from Amy. And he says, looking confused, that he'll let Amy know if he's not doing anything tomorrow. So, did he never tell her what happened to him? If he did, she would have known it wasn't him who flirted with her, and wouldn't be so open as to ask him for a date, considering her earlier characterization where she doesn't flirt with him at all. Sonic's thoughts really demonstrate how much better Amy Rose has written in this comic, as he thinks, I don't ever remember her coming on to me like that before, when in the games that's literally her only character. The story ends with Bunny asking him happily if it's about time he made up for their staying out late. I really hate that it ends here instead of us seeing Sonic explaining what happened to Bunny. He didn't explain anything to Amy, but he's gonna have to explain things to Bunny or he'll get himself in the same situation with the ladies that Scourge did. In the next story, Sally sees in her bed Nicole broadcasting a hologram with no color of a Mobian. Also, Sally's drawn really off model here. Something about her ears, I could barely recognize it as her. Everything else is fantastic though. She asks Nicole if she detected any movement a minute ago and if her files are secure. Wonders if she's in sleep mode because she didn't answer, walks out the door that she noticed was open, and we see her meet Nicole's HoloLinks form for the first time. For some reason, Sally asks why she knows her name, even though she's the freaking princess. Literally everyone in Knothole should know her name. That was a stupid line. More importantly, Sally asks her why she sounds like Nicole as her text boxes are green like hers, and when she touches Nicole's arm, she says right away that she's real. Nicole insecurely says, not quite. It's actually a complex simulation that I've been working on for some time. Ever since I experienced life in your shoes. In fact, that's what gave me the idea. Yeah, all 30 seconds of it. Makes sense, she said that even that short amount of time was intoxicating to her. She explains while holding water and letting it drop to her hands that she's already a sentient being, but she's never been able to breathe air or feel the wind on her face or touch water. I love that she's finally getting that characterization element. Now she's actually interesting instead of just a boring living Deus Ex Machina. Now I have more to like about her than just the occasional snarky quip. Nicole says sympathetically that she realized how lucky Sally is. Sally tells her looking sad, stay this way. You're still a genius, only now you have more capabilities. We could use another freedom fighter like you. Nicole was always a freedom fighter. What about her being a handheld computer made her not qualify? Nicole then explains sadly that she's already too tired because the program drains a lot of energy out of her and her files aren't secure in this form. That's why she chose tonight when Eggman is less likely to attack. By the way, does her text box being green mean that she still speaks with a clearly AI voice? It can't be, because Sally would have immediately questioned that and immediately realized she was an AI, in addition to questioning the fact that she sounds like Nicole. Nicole explains that she's always analyzed the stars and plotted their movements and mapped out the constellations, but then says, "But I've never realized how beautiful they are. It's like I'm seeing them for the first time." Okay, so she could see the stars before, because I guess her screen has eyes in it. So why is she reacting like this now just because she's organic? She has the same mind. Wouldn't she also have the same capability of seeing that they're beautiful? She complains sadly that her power is fading and says, "Soon it'll be nothing but a computer again." Sally then reveals that she's always been the only friend that she can talk to, since she's always been hiding everything from everyone else, and I guess she thought Nicole was unjudgmental because she's an emotionless computer to her. And then she says that she wishes she didn't have to go. Nicole then reassures her that nothing will change, and Sally feels ashamed that she too was seeing the stars and appreciating them for the first time, shedding a tear in the process. The first story was by Ken Penders. While it does make sense that Scourge would get distracted by Rouge, it doesn't make any sense that Sonic survived being dropped into polluted water with octopods tied up through a complete asshole. They could have at least shown us a few panels of him escaping the ropes, but instead it seems nonsensical. It's not explained how Scourge got accepted back into his gang after they ditched him. It's not explained why they care so much about him ditching them when they did the same thing to him for a reason. And it's not explained why Boomer had a spare teleporter just conveniently in the lab and no one ever used it. If the evil twins had so much fun fighting their good twins, why didn't they go fight them with that teleporter? Were they too afraid? They weren't last time. So the whole story was wrapped up by minor Deus Ex Machinas. And I hated how the story just ended without Sonic explaining what happened to Amy and Bunny, even though they were flirting with him. I love the story as a concept, but it could have explained more. A lot more. You know what's especially bullshit? You know how it's revealed that Antoine was sent to Anti-Mobius, right? We never get to see what Antoine's daily life was like over there. Sure, we get a glimpse of it, but even then, that's hardly a normal day. This is one of the main characters of the comic, people. What was so hard about dedicating one of those normally pointless backup stories to a day in the life of Antoine Anti-Mobius? This would have been the perfect opportunity to show off the evil twins, not just in their daily lives, but also in their downtime, developing their characters more, showing if they have any hobbies like Miles playing a violin. But no. Instead, we have no idea what they all do all day, let alone how their unique interactions with each other are, so they don't really feel like people. And all we can do is guess the kind of inner turmoil Antoine was going through. Like, not trusting the evil twins not to snap at him, and even not trusting himself not to gradually lose his morality and become like them from joining in, lashing out at everything. Basically being no better than them in practice. Nor do we see if he maybe formed any genuine friendships in the gang, like with Miles, who would look like the more innocent, adorable little kid of the group to him. Such a perfect opportunity was wasted by only showing it halfway, as while we see a little bit of Patch as Antoine, we almost never see Antoine as Patch. The second story was by Tanya Del Rio, who's credited for words and pictures rather than just called the writer. Now on the one hand, I love the concept of it, the fact that Nicole's finally interesting with her sympathetic desire to be organic, and the way Sally reacted to it, proving that they're best friends. But I really wish the art was the way that I'm used to. Sally looked too different. The art would normally be great, but it's so different that it's off-putting and distracting. Also, why is Nicole's text box green? If it's because her voice still sounds exactly like an AI, why didn't Nicole complain about that in her efforts to be more organic and solve that? And why didn't Sally point that out before? And why didn't Sally point that out better? If she can have an organic body, I don't think her voice would be that of an AI. It was good though.